Good time of day, everyone. I'm Benjamin Castle, one half of Americans Watching the Footy here in South San Francisco, California, our hometown. And welcome to my first and our first longer form video. You know, I've been so excited about the run home this year, how incredibly close it is from near the top of the pack, you know, breaching the top 4 even, to the bottom. Entering this round, round 18, just 10 points separated 5th from the top and 4th from the bottom, 15th. That's the closest that we've been at this stage, with 7 games to play in the home and away campaign since 2000, when Geelong had 34 points and Fremantle had 24. Essendon were running away with a minor premiership, and St Kilda were on the bottom. But even with tighter races for both the McClelland Trophy and the Wooden Spoon, here we are, with just 10 points separating all those spots. The taste of 1-15. With this finals race being so crowded, I want to take a look at each of those sides that are in 5th through 15th. Look at their run home, where I see their potential wins and losses. I'm using a bit of a stoplight system to do that. Green, I expect they'll win those games. Yellow, I'm unsure, but I'll leave a ring on the outside of those circles to say whether I, in this point, tip them to win or lose them. And red, I thoroughly expect them to lose them. So, it's no fun to go in order. I've got a wheel up, so let's see which of these finals contenders we've got first. Ooh, the Greater Western Sydney Giants. Now, honestly, the Giants have already exceeded expectations in year 1 for Adam Kingsley. Some of the younger guys definitely are stepping up. Finn Callahan should be a 22 under 22 lock, and I hope he's not overlooked because he doesn't play in Victoria. But his style is fitting the older players on the list too. The old midfield core, well, I mean, as old as the Giants can get, but Cornelio, Kelly, and the like, they fit right in with the Orange Tsunami, supplemented by some great younger additions like Toby Bedford coming over from Melbourne, loves snooze, and they've definitely notched some surprise results. Sydney Derby 25, beating Geelong at Cardinia Park, absolutely thrashing Freo. They're in position to make a good run for things. At the same time, though, you'll see what I have up here. I don't think it's really going to happen. It's a really tough test to go to Adelaide. Yes, they did beat them round 1, but that was really the Crows' undoing. Some winnable games down the stretch for sure. I don't see them beating Essendon in the rematch. I just don't see it. But they could surprise us all. I see him just outside the 8 at the moment, but Adam Kingsley honestly should be Coach of the Year right up there with Ken Hinkley. I might give my vote to Kingsley over Hinkley, honestly. And I really think the Giants can make a run for it in these next couple years as the younger part of their list continues to mature. All right, I want to go somewhat quickly here because we have 11 clubs to talk about, and the Cats are next. Okay, I am the least sure about Geelong's schedule. Let's just put it up right now. The only thing I really have sharpied in is them losing at the Gabba because, well, it's the Gabba. Everyone has trouble there, including the Cats. They're definitely helped by having a lot of home games down the stretch. Essendon, Freo, Port, and the Bulldogs. Right now, I see that Bulldogs game in the closing round as a make-or-break game for them, and as of now, I'd back them in to win it. They have a nice mix of old and young, of course, and really it's going to come down to how much can the midfield contend, because Dangerfield is great off the bounce still, but his time needs to be managed, and a lot of it's going to rely on some younger pieces in there. I think Mitch Nevitt is an underrated piece who's going to be crucial in terms of some defensive midfield work, the pressure he puts on, and obviously Max Holmes on the wing. Yes, my brother is a Cats member. Hell, he named his cat after Brian. He's actually right over there while I'm filming, but he's sleeping. I do see the Cats making the 8. I think they've got enough teams who are slipping in form that they can surpass them. That Essendon clash this week is going to be tremendous, and even though they have to play the top 2, overall, I think that the schedule remains advantageous enough for them. Let's keep this thing going here. 2 down, 9 to go. Next up, Richmond. Now, I'm honestly pretty high on the Tigers' hopes, even with Toby Nankervis out these next 3 weeks. Look at who they play, though. I thoroughly expect them to go 2-1 in that stretch, and at the very least, stay steady there. West Coast and Hawthorn should be easy wins, even with a healthier Eagles defense. Yes, I'm an Eagles member myself, as you can tell. Love the fact that they'll really have their premiership back line back, but come on, you don't expect Richmond to lose to them. It will be funny as hell. The biggest key games for Richmond are rounds 21 and 22 there against the Dogs and Saints. I do see them having an edge right now. in the rematch against the Bulldogs because of where the Dogs' defense lies, the injuries they have there, and the cracks that have emerged. Even with Tom Lynch out for the rest of the year, Richmond have enough ways to beat him, I think. They could go smaller, swing Liam Baker forward. I'm waiting for Boris Rioli Jr. to have a game that shows that, yes, he really belongs at the AFL level still. I think Marlon Pickett being inside could do some damage, with Jack Ross playing more on the wing, who definitely deserves that spot after the sub role he played against the Swans last Thursday. I don't think anybody further back than Richmond can make the 8. And because Richmond have the schedule they do, with the bottom of 3 still coming up, and some definitely winnable games against Victorian sides, I can see it happening. Stay tuned to the end of the video, by the way, for my full ladder prediction. I tipped everything, used Squiggle to get the points and everything, so you'll see where everybody lies. But on to Club 4 out of 11, and it's Essendon. Essendon are the highest up, obviously, of the 11 clubs in this video because they're in 5th, coming off that win against the Crows, where the scoreboard doesn't really say it all. They dominated that game, really, and beat Adelaide at their own game. Geelong will be a hell of a task this week at Cardinia Park. The midfield will be where Essendon have to win that game because they won't be able to stand up to Tom and Jezza in the defensive 50. We saw those struggles in the country game earlier this year when Hawkins kicked 8-1. They still have the bottom 2 to play rounds 21 and 22, and that helps a whole lot. I think they do make finals. Now, whether they win one from there, yeah, see me later on that. I love that they have that round 19 opener against the Dogs on Friday, and Friday Night Footy is on Fox Sports 2 here pretty much every week, so hopefully a lot of Americans tune in at early hours for that. If you don't know, when we watch those primetime games, 7:50 p.m. Melbourne time is 2:50 a.m. California time. So much for circadian rhythm. The Saints. Those injuries this past week really hurt them. Max Cake could be out for the rest of the year. There's potential that he isn't. Let's show the road home. Seb Ross could be out the rest of the way with his hamstring. They lost Jack Billings for a month after he just came back. Now they've got 2 of the bottom of 3 left, and that's big. The Suns this week, though, is a real toss-up. You never know what that new coach atmosphere is going to do. That can often boost clubs, as we saw in the first round this year. The 4 clubs with new head coaches all won their round 1 games. I do think they'll beat the Suns this week, and things will look pretty nice for them going into round 21. But tough tasks ahead, considering how they've already played some of those clubs, and the Blues are rising. So are Richmond, and they'll have Nate Curvis back by then, of course. Finishing up at the Gabba for them is brutal, and I could really see them missing out because of it. I don't think it will reflect too poorly on the club, though. It is year 1 under Ross Lyon. They've suffered a number of key injuries. I think the list is really still learning to play Ross's way. I'm not sure if all the pieces are there as he would want them to be. I expect them to be a finalist within the next few years, just maybe not this year. This will be the halfway point here, I guess, because this is 6 of 11, and hello, Sydney Swans, and what a win yesterday. At the time that I'm making this video, it's Thursday evening American time, so Friday morning Australian time. Good morning, I guess. Now, I did tip them to beat the Bulldogs, and by a pretty narrow margin. I think I had it a bit wider than 2 points, obviously. Errol Golden is nigh unstoppable at this early age in his career. I insist that he will be a Brownlow medalist before the decade is out. Ollie Flord stood up, and really, the Swans had a better forward mix because it was only Aaron Naughton that was productive for the Bulldogs. I was waiting to see if someone else would swing up forward. And Jamar Ugle-Hagan is obviously a good mark, but he has trouble finishing. It obviously hurt that Sam Darcy was out for the latter portions of the game. I'm wondering if Buko Kamas could come in next week and really do some damage. I would love it. I'm actually friends from college with one of Buku's friends growing up, a guy who played basketball at Cal. But I guess we're kind of sidetracking there about the Dogs. As for the Swans, obviously tough road ahead. I really think one loss could do them in, and going to Freo is going to be very tough. They won there last year around the same point in the season, too. It was a really impressive win back in round 18. I was driving up to Oregon when that happened and was intensely following that game. Yes, your eyes do not fool you. I think the Giants will sweep Sydney Derby. It's a very bold prediction, I know. But if the Swans aren't out of it before round 23, going to Adelaide and then finishing up with the D's, I think will do them in. It's a shame that Buddy won't be able to go out in grand style, but at this point, I think it's kind of inevitable. So 6 down, 5 to go. Who's next? Okay, then we can talk more about the Bulldogs, or I really said my piece on them already largely, but they're in a weird spot list-wise because they've got so many talls and also so many who are capable of playing in the midfield that inevitably some of them end up playing out of position. Rory Lobb had been put on the wing, he'd been put to center half back, now he's been dropped, so who the hell knows? Aaron Naughton's obviously versatile, Sam Darcy, if he's healthy, could really help there, but it's going to be tough for the Dogs to find the right role for everybody. You wonder why Bailey Smith all of a sudden just sounded like he could be going to Geelong. But the Dogs do have some advantageous pieces of the schedule coming up with Hawthorn and West Coast in rounds 22 and 23. Hawks tend to play him tough in Launceston, but I think the Bulldogs will win like they did last year. The question is those next 3. All very winnable, but all very losable all the same, considering how that Richmond matchup went earlier this year and how those other clubs are going. Yes, the Dogs won at Canberra against the Giants, but I think that rematch will be a really great game out in Ballarat. I think the Dogs can hang on with the help of that easier fixture near the end. We're around the same point in the video now as we are in the home and away season. Oh, I have so much fun talking about Carlton, just in general with how chaotic they are as a club. You know, you have comparisons to the Toronto Maple Leafs of the NHL, if you know ice hockey. The Blues haven't won a flag since 1995. The Leafs haven't won one since 1967. They're, some of the proudest, oldest clubs, and they've got this upper-class fan base. Their colors are similar. Heck, the Toronto Maple Leafs mascot is called Carlton. You see why they always fail year after year. A real test this week against Port. I think, Carlton being favored on Sportsbet, which is just ridiculous. Yes, Port have 6 changes, but they're all reasonable changes. Ollie Lord's back in to cover for Charlie Dixon, and I think the league is going to learn about Lord pretty soon if they haven't already. Captain Tom Jonas finally coming in. It's all, reasonable stuff. Carlton will get one back against the Eagles in round 19. It would be hilarious if they didn't. I'm saying that just as a footy fan and not even from an Eagles member perspective, but I think honestly they've done enough damage to themselves already with Port, Collingwood, and Melbourne in those final 7 games. They're behind the 8 ball already, and I think it's too much, too little, too late. Though, I could be shocked, but if they win their way into the finals, I don't expect them to win a final. It would be hilarious if they did. Honestly, nearly any outcome for the Blues would be hilarious, because it's the Blues. 3 clubs to go. One of those in the 8, and a couple very close to each other on the ladder, and Freo. So, Freo are behind the Gold Coast Suns at this point in the year. Who saw that coming? Show of hands? My hands remain down. I expected a bit of a backslide for the Dockers this year because of who they were losing, going pretty young pretty quickly, and Luke Jackson coming in needed some time to adjust. He has now. Tough schedule near the end for them, and I was surprised at how lifeless they looked against Carlton. That just made very little sense to me, and now they've got some key defensive outs against Collingwood with Brendan Cox and Hayden Young out, so it could very much go from bad to worse for them. I could see them getting one back against the Swans, partially because it's in Perth, and in their final 3 games, they got 2 of the bottom 3. Western Derby could be chaotic, but they'll win it. But I think they've done too much damage to themselves already, like a lot of clubs have. It's unfortunate, even as an Eagles member, I like Freo. I like so many of their players. I'm really passionate about saying, Bailey Banfield belongs in the 18. I'm glad he was selected this week. Things like that. But it's not anywhere close to a flag mantle year. 2 clubs to go. Who's next? Who's the penultimate one of this video? Under Stephen King, I guess? Stuart Dew got them to where they were. I find it brutal that he was sacked when he was. Of course you're going to have poor performances against the top 2. The Suns feel confident enough that they're going to get Dilla that they just want to clear house now and make sure that no other clubs get toward him? I don't know. But it's a tough schedule to the end for the Suns. They can spring surprises anywhere. Yes, I am confident in the Giants actually winning in Canberra against the Suns. I know the Giants haven't won there in a long time, and I'm surprised I didn't mention that earlier, but I do see it happening. I think they lose this week as well to the Saints, even with that new coach boost. They've got North to help things at the end, but I'd be surprised if they're still in the mix round 24. It's so disappointing. I thought really the Suns would have a chance to go at things this year with how they set themselves up last year. Still having a pretty young part of the list there. Love what Bailey Humphrey's done at the beginning, making people forget that Isaac Crichton was the cost to get him. But for them, I think it is too late. I want the Suns to succeed. I want there to be a reason for the AFL to stay and grow on the Gold Coast and in some less traditional markets, but not this year. And Stuart Dew, I guess, get ready to learn Tasmanian, buddy. So I guess that leaves the Adelaide Crows for last. We talk about them so much on our podcast because we're just so intrigued by how they're developing. Yes, gratuitous wheel spinning there, I know. Let's just put their schedule up right now. Some winnable stuff there. The Suns, the Swans, the Eagles, easy way for them to make up ground. They're going to be ruining those round 1 and 2 losses so much if they don't end up making the 8 this year. They were up against the Giants. They were controlling that game, but weren't finishing well, and GWS put on a comeback to win 16 in round 1, and then they had an inaccurate first quarter against the Tigers at home in round 2, and it set the tone for that whole game. They got some winnable contests there. I think Port will get over them in showdown, but anything can happen, and one change to those reds into a green could put them into the 8. I want, honestly, a showdown final. It would just be so dramatic and be the peak at this point of that rivalry. Both clubs higher up than we necessarily expected them at this point in the year. So yes, I've tipped every single one of the games. I know it's hard to keep track of them all. Who's actually in my 8? It surprised me a little bit at first when I saw the results, but here they are. Melbourne leapfrogging Brisbane is not something I expected. It's solely on percentage, and I guess that's the effect of them still having North and Hawthorn yet to play. A lot of that will hinge on the Friday nighter that will be happening a few hours after I upload this, so this all could be proven wrong very quickly, and I am ready to take the humiliation for that. Oh yeah, I have Geelong and Richmond in, Adelaide and St Kilda out. As I intimated earlier, I think the Saints have already peaked this year. They had that new coach boost early on, but a lot of things have gotten in their way. Couple disappointing losses, and they face an uphill battle now. And the Crows, I think we will look back on rounds 1 and 2 and maybe showdown 54 if it's close as the reasons why they sit out. But we've been so surprised by so much this season, and there could be so much that can surprise us still. So if I'm completely wrong, I'll own up to it. You'll see future videos from me as we get closer to the finals race, and once we have the 8 decided about where I see things from there. Hopefully you're also already listening to our podcast, Americans Watching the Footy, same name as our channel. You can find it anywhere that you get podcasts. Thank you to Spotify for Podcasters for making all that possible. Be sure to like and subscribe, comment your feedback, and stay in touch with us on Twitter at Americans Footy. I'll put up everything at the end here, and thanks for watching the first of these longer form videos. Enjoy the road home like we are, and wherever you are.